Limpin POS drifted through the glittering void of space, engines humming a tune that sounded almost competent. For once, the crew was on schedule. The cargo bay held a royal wedding cake, 5 tiers of frosted diplomacy, sealed tight in its cryo case. Rin lounged in the pilot's chair, boots on the console, a look of smug satisfaction on his face. "We're actually ahead of schedule," Rin said. Gront, with a fat finger in his nose, replied, "Feed off the console, Rin. The Limpin POS is a marvel of modern science." Bukrell gave a dry reply from behind a console. "Actually, it's closer to a trash can with guns and weak engines." In the corner, Nim adjusted the cryo case readout. Still holding temperature. 1 royal cake perfectly chilled. "Beautiful," Gront remarked. "No one's ever delivered frosting faster than us." Then the stars outside stopped moving. A low vibration rippled through the deck. Tools lifted into the air. The lights dimmed. "What the guano," Rin muttered. "We're frozen in mid-warp." "Thrusters unresponsive," Krell replied. "External readings 0 motion. We're stuck in space." And then it appeared. From the starlight ahead, a shimmer unfolded, soft green, vast and ancient. A translucent face emerged, its eyes as deep as galaxies. A voice filled the bridge, calm and immense. "You appear to be salvage in motion. Identify yourselves." Gront straightened his jacket. "Captain Gront of the Limpin POS, on a critical royal cake delivery." "Cake," the entity repeated, the word echoing across the hull. "Yes," Gront said, "diplomatic frosting, top tier." Rin added quickly, "And we're on time, so if you could just let us pass." The face tilted slightly, studying them. "This vessel is small, unstable. It should not function." Krell replied evenly, "That's what we keep telling it." Sid added, "Correction. Statistically, it should have exploded 12 times this cycle." The entity paused. "And yet, it endures." Panels flickered as the being's attention swept through the ship. Tools floated, holographic readouts danced, and the cryo case opened slightly, revealing a faint blue glow from the cake's icing. The entity's tone softened. "What is this fragile construction?" "It's art," Nim said proudly. "It's diplomacy," Gront countered. "A peace offering you can slice." The entity's light pulsed. "You consume your art?" "Definitely," Gront said. "It's what makes life meaningful." For a long moment, the being was silent. Then a sound like distant thunder rolled through space. Laughter. "You crossed the void to deliver sweetness," the entity said, amused. "In this derelict miracle of spare parts." Gront grinned. "That's us, delivering joy 1 crumb at a time." Sid remarked, "Captain, joy is not among our documented cargo." "Then add it to the manifest," Gront said. The laughter grew, shaking the hull. The stars flickered back to life. "You are magnificent," the entity said through its fading mirth. "Ridiculous, but magnificent." And just like that, the ghostly face dissolved into the starfield, leaving the Limpin POS free once again. Rin checked his instruments. "We're moving. On course, but a little late." "Don't question it," Gront said. "Just drive." Sid's voice faded in one last time. "Captain, shall I note the encounter in the log?" Gront smirked. "Yes, file it under things that laughed at us and let us go." The Limpin POS slipped from warp with a wheeze and a pop, its hull still humming from the entity's laughter. The crew stared at the massive royal vessel ahead, polished white hull, golden accents, banners fluttering in 0 gravity. The kind of ship that made theirs look like a mail can with wings. Rin adjusted the comms. "We're 3 minutes late," he said. Krell replied calmly. "After being detained by a cosmic consciousness, that's commendable." 3 minutes late is still late," Gront said. "Royal people get cranky about frosting." Through the viewport, the crew could see the glittering ballroom of the wedding ship. Guests floated gracefully in low-gravity elegance, music shimmering through the void. And there, in the center, stood the bride and groom, reciting vows with a round, empty table waiting patiently beside them. "The cake table," Nim whispered, eyes wide. "It's just sitting there, naked." Gront squinted. "We can't barge in now, not during the vows. Royal security would vaporize us before the bouquet toss." "I can fix this," Nim announced, standing proudly at the teleportation console. "I'll beam the cake straight to the table. Soft landing, dead center. They'll never know we were late." Rin leaned back. "Every time you say soft landing, something explodes." "Not this time," Nim said confidently. "I've adjusted for the gravitational offset and compensated for rotational drift. Perfect drop." Sid's cool voice filled the bridge. "Margin of error, 0.02%, equivalent to dropping it from a balcony." Gront said, Okay, Nim, I trust you. Give it your best shot. Yes, Captain, Nim said, entering the sequence into the console. A hum filled the cabin. The cryo case shimmered in blue light, then vanished. On the wedding ship, the air above the cake table rippled like heat haze. Every guest looked up. And then instantly, 5 tiers of royal confection materialized 20 feet above the table. Time slowed. The bride's eyes widened. The groom mouthed, "What is that?" The orchestra hit a confused high note. Then the cake descended. It hit the table like a comet. Frosting detonated outward in a glorious explosion of sugar and sponge. The front row of nobility vanished under a cloud of pink icing. The officiant froze mid-sentence, dripping raspberry filling from his collar. On the Limpin POS, everyone stared at the feed in stunned silence. Well, Rin said at last, technically, it landed on the table. Nim whispered, perfect? Lateral alignment. Sid chimed in, impact velocity, terminal. Krell folded his arms. Statistically consistent with previous missions. Gront rubbed his forehead. Please tell me the royal family has a sense of humor. Through the comms, faint shouting could be heard, something about frosting in the ventilation system. Gront straightened his jacket. All right, crew, let's send a note of apology and maybe a complimentary cupcake? Sid replied, I recommend warp speed instead. Good thinking, Gront said. Rin, warp, whatever. The Limpin POS cruised away from the royal vessel, its hull still glistening with frosting under starlight. For once, the crew was quiet, the sort of silence that comes only after surviving something both catastrophic and strangely satisfying. Gront leaned back in his chair, brushing a crumb from his sleeve. Well, he said proudly, another successful delivery. Rin muttered, if by successful you mean catastrophic but nobody died. Sid interrupted. Captain, incoming transmission from the Royal Channel. You may wish to brace. Gront groaned. If it's another thank you, tell them we don't do encores. The screen flickered to life. A palace attendant appeared, posture perfect and expression strained, as if holding back either rage or tears. Captain Gront, the attendant began, voice clipped and frosty, His Majesty appreciates your enthusiasm. However, certain guests are less amused. Nim winced. I knew that cake was too moist. The attendant adjusted his collar. As a gesture of goodwill, you are hereby commissioned to deliver crystallized fruit baskets to those unfortunate guests. Rare delicacies from 7-star systems. Please handle them with care. The feed cut abruptly. Gront turned to the crew. All right, team, let's polish our halos. Time to deliver dessert 2.0. Sid chimed softly. Captain, given our historical record with edible cargo, would you like me to initiate the fire suppression system now? Gront grinned. Let's save that for when things actually go wrong. Hours later, the Limpin POS cruised through deep space with its cargo bay packed full of shimmering crystal baskets, each one softly glowing like bottled starlight. Nim poked one curiously. They hum when you touch them. Krell frowned, scanning a readout. Organic resonance detected. These are alive. Alive? Gront repeated. Like fruit alive? Sid replied calmly. Correction, gestational containment pods. Gront blinked. You mean eggs? Affirmative. A sudden crack echoed through the cargo bay, then another. One by one, the crystal baskets began to tremble. Before anyone could react, the first pod split open and a glowing, squealing creature tumbled out, part hamster, part jellyfish, and wholly delighted to exist. It blinked, cooed, then bit through a power cable. Sparks flew. Within minutes, the entire cargo hold erupted into chaos. Hatchlings wriggled from their pods, glowing in neon colors and emitting musical chirps. One drifted by wearing a broken fruit rind as a hat. Another spat a beam of static across the ceiling. Contain them! Gront shouted. Krell snatched a broom, and Nim grabbed a bucket. By the time the crew captured the last hatchling, the Limpin POS looked like it had been chewed by a black hole. Panels hung loose, wires dangled like vines, and faint squeaks echoed from the ventilation system. Krell wiped residue off his scanner. Hull integrity's at 62%. Half the conduit runs are fried. It'll take a full week of repairs back at your base, Captain. Assuming we don't discover any more fruit with teeth. Gront groaned. A week? That's a vacation I didn't ask for. Sid added helpfully. Recommendation, rename the ship the Limping Pudding. As they limped home through the starfield, a final royal message arrived. Gront accepted the transmission, and this time it wasn't the attendant. It was the king himself, leaning comfortably on a throne made of gold and ego. Captain Gront, His Majesty said, trying not to laugh. Consider this a small jest in good taste, a harmless reminder that while your cake delivery was not what we had in mind, we still have a sense of humor. The king chuckled. Do send me the repair bill, I'll have it framed. Then the feed cut off. The bridge went silent. Nim finally whispered, We got pranked by a king. Rin sighed. Guess that makes us court jesters. Gront slumped in his chair, looking at the glowing bite marks on the console. Well, he said at last, next time a royal wants peace offerings, I'm sending Fig Newtons. The Limpin POS drifted toward home, engines sputtering and hull half melted, a trail of sparks clinging to its wake. Somewhere in the ductwork, a tiny hatchling hiccuped and sneezed a spark of light. Gront rubbed his temples. A week in dry dock, he muttered. Sid replied gently, Plenty of time for reflection, Captain. Gront sighed. Yeah, reflection and fumigation. Krell sat at his console, staring at the diagnostics like they'd personally offended him. Hull's at 58% now, he said flatly. Power conduits chewed to ribbons. Environmental system sticky. A week of repairs might have been too optimistic, Captain. Gront groaned, unwrapping a zebra cake. Great. I'll tell the crew it's a working vacation. Rin leaned back in his chair, kicking one boot against the console. Working? You mean watching Krell work while you supervise from the hot tub again? Nim, still plucking bits of melted crystal off his jacket, muttered, As long as the hot tub isn't full of glowing fruit babies, I'm fine. From the vent above them came a faint squeak, followed by the sound of something chewing. Everyone froze. Please tell me that's the radio, Nim whispered. Sid's voice replied, perfectly calm. Affirmative, if the radio now glows and consumes insulation. Krell sighed, We'll need fumigation protocols. Gront waved it off. Nah, just give them a snack drawer and a blanket. They'll tire out. The bridge fell quiet again. For a moment it almost felt peaceful. Then Sidid spoke with a tone dry enough to sand wood. Captain, shall I file this mission under successful diplomatic engagement or culinary disaster part 2? Gront didn't even look up. Whichever one comes with hazard pay. A soft pop echoed from somewhere deep in the vents. A single spark drifted down like a lazy firefly. Gront watched it land on the deck with a sigh. Next time, he said, we're delivering bottled water. Excellent, Sid replied. What could possibly go wrong? No one answered. The ship groaned, the stars slid quietly by, and somewhere in the ductwork a baby hatchling hiccuped, followed by a tiny burst of static and a satisfied chirp. And with that, the Limpin POS limped on, battered, sticky, and still the galaxy's least qualified delivery crew.